Mark 8:32 is pretty much straightforward. Kai parousia ton logon elale. Kai proslabomenos ha petros auton exita epitimon auto. And then parousia is an interesting word. It has two basic meanings. It can mean to speak with boldness or confidence, fearless, courage, but none of that would really apply to this context. It also can mean openness, frankness, plainness. So the question is he speaking plainly to them, or is he speaking publicly about him? The translations are pretty split on this. I don't really like the idea of plainly, because so much of what Jesus is saying is plain. But this is about his coming persecution and death. And I think the point is that now, instead of this being hidden somewhere, it's out in the open. This is what's going to happen to Jesus. So I like the translations of the NRSV, CSB, and the Net Bible, that he's speaking openly about this. And that he's in public. He was speaking, there's your imperfect, the word. In other words, the word meaning what he just said. And now this is some interesting stuff going on here. You have Petros, which is the subject of the verb, right? Peter began, complementary infinitive. He began to rebuke him. Well, where does this auton go? Who is auton as opposed to auto? Well, they're both Jesus, but the auton is the direct object of the participle. So for English, this is a little mixed up, isn't it? So the idea is Peter taking him aside began to rebuke him. And epitimao is a strong word. It does mean to rebuke. It's harsh language. Actually, before phrasing, I should point out a couple things about epitimao. One is that we just saw that word back up in verse 30. And there it had a slightly different meaning. It means Jesus commanded them that they not say anything about him. But now publicly, he is speaking to them, parousia, but now he's going to rebuke Peter. So even though epitimao has different meanings, it does tie the discussion together. I also mentioned that in epitimao that it is a complementary, I probably should write so you can read my handwriting, huh? It's a complementary infinitive. In other words, one of the functions of the infinitive is to complete the meaning of the main verb. But this comes in English straight with the word to. He began to rebuke. So it's easy to miss it. But anyway, this kind of infinitive that completes the meaning of the verb is called a complementary infinitive. So let's go ahead and phrase this in. So he was speaking to the word openly, publicly to them. And now this is going to get a little tricky because of the word placement. Because what you have, as I've said, is Petros is the subject, the verb is exita, and then a complementary infinitive, and the auton goes up here with the participle. So I think you could lay it out something like this. So first of all, to make the subject and the verb clear, you can draw the arrow, and then you can bring the verb over and continue it with an arrow. So that makes it clear. And then the other thing that we can do is move the auton up with a participle. And whenever you are going to change word order, you need to mark it with an ellipsis somehow. And now you can bring this over because it's telling you something about his beginning to rebuke him. So I should indent the chi too. So it's, and publicly, he was speaking the word to them, what I just said, and Peter, taking him aside, began to rebuke him. But like I said earlier, it's pretty common to have a participle and then the subject of the sentence inside the participial phrase, but it's actually the subject of the verb. Common construction.